How's it going, everybody? Hope everybody's having a great weekend, guys. Look, it's cold here. I'm trying to stay warm. The fireplace is going, guys. It is 100%, probably about 72 degrees in here, so it is very cozy in here, guys. I hope you guys are staying warm too, as well, guys. And when you travel this winter, or well, so I say this Christmas is coming up 5 days. It's crazy, guys. Anyways, I know I'll be traveling. I've said that to you guys before. I've got probably about 4 hours to drive, so I got a ways. But we will get there and we will get there safely. Hopefully, you guys actually do the same, guys. Now, Moscow, Idaho, 4 students was brutally murdered in Moscow, Idaho. The 4 college students. What do we know so far about the investigation into college students' murders? Absolutely nothing. And guys, that is bothersome to me, and that is worrisome to me. Why would that be worrisome to you? Because this killer is still at large. This killer killed 4 people and got away. We don't have DNA. We don't have a knife. We don't have nothing, guys. We don't even know which way he took off. We know which way he came in, supposedly through the second story sliding glass doors. And that's the way he supposedly came in. We don't even know where he left at. Where did, guys, if you brutally murder 4 people, where's the blood? Where's the blood out of him leaving this house? It looks like they should be able to find where he stepped at last out the door, and so on and so forth, guys. I mean, they are the FBI and they are the police. Why hasn't this been solved? We don't even have blood nowhere else besides at the murder scene. So what did this killer do? Strip off his clothes? Wash off in their bathtub? I mean, and they are going to go actually check out the water supply of Moscow, Idaho. It actually monitors every use of every home of every address. So put the timelines of the murder with the water usage of the houses and find out who was actually, well, could have been taking showers at the time of the murders or after the time of the murders. Guys, but we have a 4-hour period where everything's kind of blank. We have survivors in the basement in the first story who survived because the doors was locked. And some people say that they heard rumbling on the second and third story, so they locked their doors. Well, if that's the case, why didn't they call the cops? See, that wasn't the original story. The original story from the police was that they survived because their doors was locked, not because they got up and heard wrestling around, so they locked their doors. So people are saying that now, that the reason why that they survived is because they heard it and got up and locked the doors. Well, call the police then. It doesn't make no sense, guys. Then you got people driving around making up stories trying to involve people that's actually been died of sleep overdose from taking too much sleep medication. And yes, that is a YouTuber driving around trying to make up stories and tie in people's names with these murders of the 4 Moscow students because there's no more content for them, guys. And I'm talking about Hannah Claire. Hannah Claire was a Moscow, Idaho student who actually died from taking too much sleep medication. Her father even spoke out on this and said that's the reason why there was no foul play. And this YouTuber is actually trying to tie her death in to the 4 Moscow, Idaho students that was brutally stabbed. It's time to just forget about all the rest of this stuff and focus on the main thing, which is the 4 Idaho students that was brutally murdered, guys. Instead of spreading all kinds of stuff and trying to make money off your YouTube channels, and that's what they're trying to do, guys. Anyways, guys, I got a video I want to actually share with you guys, so I'm actually going to put on my headset. I'm going to share this with you guys. Anyways, let's go over here, and let's listen to this, guys. Give me just a second, guys. Just a second. So this video is as Idaho students' murder last develops, heading into holiday break. It's Law and Crime is actually the YouTuber, actually a TV show I do believe too. Guys, anyways, this actually was a very good video. So I've got some points I want to talk to through this, and then I'm going to pause through it, talk to you guys about it. Then we'll talk about it afterwards, but let's continue with the video.
Massive amounts of video footage, especially in the critical camera areas. And we looked at the 24 hours prior to and 24 hours after of those. And now we're extending that out even further to other cameras and other time frames.
We go through the latest developments in the University of Idaho murder investigation. From updates on the search for a car to a new stalker report, we get into it all. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime.
And guys, I want to say, guys, they have so many tags of this car, they said, that nobody needs to be helping drive around looking for this car. I mean, guys, if they're in Moscow, Idaho, they know who this car belongs to. The car was actually seen up above the house where the 4 students were brutally murdered the night of the crime as well. So they know who this car is. They have the tag numbers, guys. If this car was 100% wanted, it would be found. And if they say, hey, they can't find this car, then more than likely they know something they don't want to give out to anybody else. So they're saying they don't know where this car's at. Anyways, don't drive around Walmart trying to find this car for them, guys. Anyways, let's get right back to the video.
I'm Jesse Weber. We have had an interesting past few days in the University of Idaho quadruple murder case. The killings of 21-year-old Kaylee Gonsalves, 21-year-old Madison Mogan, 20-year-old Zahner Kernodle, and 20-year-old Ethan Chapin. While there's still no arrests, no suspects, no recovered weapon, we do want to do a bit of a recap of some of the latest developments that we've been seeing and hearing. And we're going to start by talking about the white Hyundai Elantra. Now, as you'll recall, police asked for the public's help in identifying this car because they believe that it was near the crime scene at the time of the murders. Well, here is Moscow Police Captain Roger Lanier explaining some of the latest on the car and why it is so important.
Well, through our tips, through our leads, some of the evidence that came in, we start to identify patterns. And like we said earlier, we are confident that the occupant or occupants of that vehicle have information that's critical to this investigation. We also understand that even though there's sometimes a fascination with a particular case, some people simply don't see the news and may not know that we're looking for it. So if we get the word out there, hey, maybe your neighbor has one in the garage that they don't drive very often. Maybe there's one that's just not on the registration database. Let us know. So far, we have a list of approximately 22,000 registered white Hyundai Elantras that fit into our criteria that we're sorting through. That's an awful lot of information, but
22,000. They have enough. We don't need to actually pour in false information to the police station in Moscow, Idaho, where they get backed up even more, and it takes away from the time for them to actually take care of this crime. They're having a hard time enough, guys. They don't even know. We don't even have a murder weapon. We don't even have DNA. Now they go on to say they think maybe the DNA was underneath the girl's fingernails. Well, get it. What are we waiting on? This killer's going to strike again. And now they say that there may be more than one killer in this statement on Fox News. If you look on that article, it says the occupant or occupancies. What? Now we think there's 2 killers? Which one is it? So is it 1 or is it 2? Was the first floor door unlocked or was it not? Did the father change the locks or did he not? That's what we need to start looking at. And yes, the father said he did change the numeric code and the lock. If you guys remember before, there was actually word that the code, everybody knew the code because it was a party house. The father changed that. Anyways, guys, let's continue with the video.
it may not be all of them. So the public can help us with that.
And to give you an idea about why it is imperative for the public to be aware of all this and why it is imperative for the public's help is because of what just happened. A gas station assistant manager decided to just go through the surveillance footage from the station when she had some downtime. She did this after hearing the police's call for help in identifying the white car. And when she went through the footage, she noticed a white car driving rather quick, headed down a side street off a highway at 3:45 a.m. at the time, or at the night of the murders, I should say. 3:45 a.m. at the night of the murders. Now, police ended up collecting 8 hours worth of tape from the gas station as a result of this. We're not really sure if the car is the one they're looking for, but again, it just gives you a sense of how important it is for the public to help the police at this critical time. There was also an update on whether or not Kaylee had a stalker.
So I don't get it. Do they want the public to help or do they not? Because then again, in more articles, they say for everybody to stop calling the Moscow police station with, well, information, because it's slowing down the period of time for them to actually be able to search. I mean, they've already took the weekend off as a cool down, they called it. So how far did the killer go in the weekend? Could the killer be in another country now because you decided to take the weekend off? I don't think there should be any time off. You have enough FBI, you have enough cops to actually do this all the way through. I understand there's people being murdered all over the world. But you're in Moscow, Idaho, where 4 of your kids was brutally murdered. There's not another not 4 people being brutally murdered in Moscow, Idaho as of right now. So therefore, this is probably the only 4 students that was ever stabbed in Moscow, Idaho. Probably the only 4 people at one time that was stabbed in Moscow, Idaho, period. I tried to look that up, guys, and I couldn't find it. It didn't show any of that stuff. No information on how many students had actually been murdered at that college. None of that stuff, all that stuff is not to be seen, I guess. So, with that being said, guys, let's continue with the video.
Stalker. Originally, her family said that they weren't aware of a stalker. Police haven't corroborated any evidence to suggest that there's a stalker. They actually looked into a prior incident where 2 guys were in a local business with Kaylee back in October. One even looked like he was going to approach her, but didn't. Police checked out the 2 guys. They determined that they were just trying to meet girls and ruled them out as being suspects or involved in the murders in any way. But here's what's interesting. NewsNation senior national correspondent Brian Enton, who has been following this case and has actually come here on Sidebar, he spoke with a vape shop owner who knew Kaylee and Madison and said there were discussions about a stalker just 3 weeks before the murders.
Hey, coming together and stuff like that, it's nice to see you guys trying to stay safe. One of them more or less openly says, oh yeah, we've had a friend of ours be stalked before, so this is kind of why we all travel in a group like this. And just was it Kaylee who said that, do you remember? No, it was Maddie who actually said that. So Maddie said it, and it was kind of like more mentioning, like motioning to Kaylee too, like who was right next to her. So you could tell that like they obviously all were trying to keep Kaylee safe, and to be there for her as good friends.
Now, we don't have any information about this. We don't know what they were referring to. We don't know.
Well, we do know that they actually said they had a stalker anyways. They turned that into the professor of their college. And that was actually never looked into. And if it was looked into, it was over just, oh, well, we can't find out who it is, guys. You mean to tell me we have FBI that could pull a databases and decode scripts from when? Decode them and tell us what they're saying as of the date. We have people that could take money from ages ago and tell us how much that's worth to date. But we don't have enough people to tell us who this killer is. We don't have nothing, guys. We don't have the murder weapon. We don't have any DNA. We have a killer who stabbed 4 students, brutally stabbed them and killed them. But we have no DNA of this killer. And whenever we go and we actually compare them to a Bundy-style killing, this killer's probably got a big head now, like, oh, Bundy-style killing, that's cool. That's probably his mindset right now. That's not cool. It's just like Charles Manson when he was in prison. He still got fan mail. Why? They're like superheroes to some people. Maybe there's some things we need to just hush about it. Especially if you're an investigator, if you're the police, if you're the FBI, if you do the autopsies. That brings up another subject. The woman who does the autopsies of these 4 students actually speak out to their families about how brutal it was. There's a big deal about that right now, guys. It's crazy, guys. Anyways, let's jump right back to the video.
Who this was about, if it was about the incident that I mentioned in October or something else. But the reason that this is relevant is because we are trying to understand what would have led someone to commit these crimes. And according to Steve Gonsalves, Kaylee's father, after speaking with the coroner, he said that the wounds to Kaylee were worse. So there's been this back and forth about what was the target. Was she the target? Were they all the targets? Was it a case of the house being targeted? That's why it's important to understand this backstory. By the way,
That's the reason why we have FBI and we have cops. Figure it out. These families don't even have closure. I understand all this takes time. But we don't even have a killer yet. We don't even have the murder weapon yet. You guys carried out how many? 4,000 photos of the home? You guys picked up 119 pieces of your interest? You guys have DNA underneath the girl's fingernails that you guys say where the killer's DNA might be, quote unquote? And out of the 119 pieces of evidence and the 4,000 photos, you guys haven't recreated this room, this house, and told us, found out about the blood splatter, measured it. I mean, you guys said you guys could do all that. Where's it at? This is ridiculous. This reminds me of the Kylie Rodney case. And we actually have people going on to say, is this case going to be another cold case? They're actually saying that now. That's an embarrassment. Anyways, guys, let's jump right back to the video.
By the way, focusing on the Gonsalveses for a moment, we know that Mr. Gonsalves has clearly expressed his frustration with law enforcement, particularly the flow of information, the communication. He's been very vocal on the media about that. But Kaylee's mom sat down with the Today Show, and she too said that she is frustrated.
Gonsalves says she and her family support the police and the work investigators are doing, but they're critical of authorities for what they called poor communication with victims' families.
You found out about the white car from a press release.
Yes. Yes.
Did they send you the press release?
No.
And Christy Gonsalves does worry that the case could go cold. She said, quote, "I can't help but not." She said, "I mean, in all honesty, this is a possibility. There's a lot of unsolved murders." And that brings me to Shannon Gray. Shannon Gray is the attorney for the Gonsalves family. And as he explained to my co-host here on Sidebar, Anjanette Levy, he had a very important meeting with the family as well as the authorities to explain their concerns with this investigation.
Well, we had a meeting with the investigators on Monday. The prosecutor, Chief Fry, was there.
Now, pay attention to what this guy goes and talks about here, guys. This is actually about the woman who done the autopsies, guys. And I've spoken on this before. I had someone in the comments go off like they knew everything they knew about this case, saying that it was nothing. She was not a conflict of interest or anything, guys. And she's doing her job. Pay attention to what this gentleman is saying. This gentleman is an attorney. He's an attorney of law. Let's roll the footage.
As a few other people in the room. And, our theme going into that was accountability and communication. Accountability, meaning that a lot of the information that had gotten out had been inconsistent and confusing, not only to the families, but also to, I think, the public. You had the coroner making statements. You had the Bill Thompson, the prosecutor, making statements about targeting, and then that was walked back by Chief Fry in another statement. You had Art Bedke, within a day or two, making statements about crime of passion, and so a lot of inconsistencies in that. Consistency promotes trust, and so part of our theme going in was that there needs to be some accountability within the investigation about having really one voice.
And he really didn't hold back when it came to talking about the coroner in this case, Kathy Mabbitt. Because according to Steve Gonsalves, as I mentioned, Mabbitt revealed to him gruesome details of the killing. She herself has spoken to the media, talking about the toxicology reports, the extreme nature of the case, the possible murder weapon. Well, Mr. Gray was very critical of her comments and whether or not she had a conflict of interest.
Well, I mean, I have issues with the coroner. Number one, expressing all of her opinions over the media at, I think, at inappropriate times. Number one. Number two, making a personal phone call and describing graphic details of what she discovered and what she to the family. I don't think was beneficial in any way. I don't think she did it out of a place of spite. I think she did it because she was, trying to give them more details. But once you hear certain details, it's not helpful to the family and certain things. So, and I, I could go on and on about the coroner, the idea that she's a criminal defense attorney at the same time that she's a coroner.
This lady is a coroner and a criminal defense attorney all at the same time, guys. Now, is that not weird or is that not weird? Now, I'm maybe thinking outside the box here and thinking too much, but I really don't think so, guys. This is one of those times where you just shake your head and you're like, rewind, and you listen to it again, guys. So anyways, that's exactly what we're going to do, guys. We're going to rewind. We're going to listen to this one more time, guys. Pay attention to what this attorney says.
I think she did it because she was, trying to give them more details. But once you hear certain details, it's not helpful to the family and certain things. So, and I, I could go on and on about the coroner, the idea that she's a criminal defense attorney at the same time that she's a coroner, I think could present a conflict down the road. And the fact that she's continuing to defend people during this investigation. And she's done it before. I mean, the fact is that there was she was involved in she was a coroner on a murder investigation in Moscow years ago. And she also was the defense counsel on the case, which blows my mind.
We believe he's talking about the James Curtis Leonard case. You can definitely check that out. But it's an important discussion that he's having about her and her role here. We want to go now to one more big update that we have to talk about, and that is the neighbor of the slain students. I'm talking about Enon Harsh.
Now, guys, I did a video on this guy. Enon Harsh was a guy who likes to juggle, who lives on campus, and he's not a student, but he lives on campus. And when you live on campus, guys, you know somebody of that school. That's just how it works, guys. So he likes to juggle. They called him a weird socialist. So automatically, this guy becomes a 100% part of this killing. Because people start saying so, information starts pouring in. And now we have, well, another person saying so. Just because, why? Because the guy's weird? Anyways, guys, let's listen to the reason why.
Sat down with Lauren Matthias, who is the host of the Hidden True Crime podcast and YouTube channel. And the reason that he is important is because he allegedly heard something strange on the night of the murders because he was home.
After me, so I heard a car shut, a door shut, and then apartment door shut, and also a scream. But that's normal. I always hear screaming almost every Saturday night. So I didn't really think of it.
Okay, so let me clear that up from him, guys. When he says I always hear screaming, it's because he lives by a whole bunch of college students who parties every weekend. So yes, they're up screaming. The cops are being called. They're checking for alcohol. And even if the college students leaves their bags unattended and it has alcohol, the cops can actually pour all their alcohol out because it was left unattended. Anyways, guys, let's continue with the video.
Now, here's what's interesting about Mr. Harsh, and that is that people online think that he's suspicious. In fact, they have gone so far to suggest that he might be the killer. Here was his response to that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's kind of, it's almost hilarious to me that people think I did it, and they're telling me yo, you did it, and it's I don't know. It's kind of the equivalent to flat Earth theory to me.
Well, I had the opportunity to sit down not only with Lauren Matthias about this, but I also sat down with legendary former homicide detective Phil Waters, who's an expert at obtaining criminal confessions. Here was his thoughts on Enon.
He does a lot of looking around, and I'm not talking about eye stuff. I'm talking about just his mannerisms. He does a lot of this, and there are a lot of subtle shoulder shrugs. He'll be getting into a discussion, and you'll see that shoulder start to pump. Those things together would indicate to me, if I was sitting in the room with him and had a better view of him, that there is a possibility of some deception in what he is saying. In my mind, if I'm one of the detectives, he's a suspect.
A lot to digest here. And we
Well, because he's a suspect because you have nobody else as a suspect. So somebody who's a weird socialist who juggles, and that's the reason why he rents the place, because it has high voltage ceilings. You say because he shrugs his shoulders, and I get you're a specialist. I totally get that, and I respect that. But of course he would be a suspect because you have no other suspects. The guy that's walking down the street with a knife in his backpack would be a suspect too. And that's just the truth, guys. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think of the video, guys. Like the video. It actually gets in an algorithm, guys. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe to the channel. But first, love yourself, like yourself, be nothing but yourself. Like and subscribe to the channel. It's highly appreciated. Guys, go check out the channel. There's a lot more where that come from, guys. Happy early Christmas, guys. Safe travels, guys. Your boy Deuces. I'm out. Thank you, guys.